Hi, everyone. Welcome to our virtual class. This is going to use the Sign of the Times paper pack and a stencil, and we're going to make 3 cards this afternoon. There will be a video up of our previous class using the same pack. So if you didn't have that initially and you purchased it in the meantime, then you can always go back and watch that class. I see people are starting to join us, so that's great. I hope everyone enjoys it, and I'm going to switch my camera down so that you can see what's in the pack, and we can get started. And then by the end of the day, or the end of the class, I'm also going to show you samples from our next class. So that's just going to be advertised shortly. So I'm just going to switch my cameras and we can go through what's in the pack. All right, so these are the 3 cards that we're going to make this afternoon. One is a bird card. One is more of an anatomy type card. And then one is using the space images from the pack. So these are what we're making today. In our previous class, I'll just show those of you who may not have a card, and we embossed the side with the stencil. So we're going to do something similar in this class. And then we made this motorboat or speedboat card, and we added some glitter for the water, and we used the die that comes with a set to add the anchor to the card. And we used a little bit of rope to add an embellishment in the corners. And then we also made this angelfish and turtle card, and that we also used the anchor and again used the stencil. So those are the previous designs, and now we're going to make 3 more from the same pack. So what comes with your class kit is this anchor, and I think it's supposed to go like this. I didn't use it together, but we're going to use this little die, and we're going to make an impression in our cardstock on the astronaut and telescope card. You can see that here. So you can do that with any of your dies. I just thought it lent itself because of the circular design to the planets of the astronaut. And then, of course, we use the anchor die in our last class. You will get this tribal stencil. I have it in the packaging, so it's glaring a little bit. It is a 7x7 stencil. So if you have a machine that doesn't allow it doesn't have a 7-inch wide platform, you can always trim it at some point. That would allow you to get the maximum use of the stencil. It doesn't hurt your stencil, and you can use, I would trim it kind of like here or something. Then you have like a corner piece, and you have another piece that you can run through your die cutting machine. So we're going to use it to emboss today. And then you get your paper pack. So this is an A4 size. It's Ciao Bella paper. Ciao Bella has very interesting designs. I've been playing with a bunch of their packs. And this is called Sign of the Times. It does have a 12x12 package as well, and a 6x6. So you can, it's whatever you prefer, the different sizes. They all have they're double-sided. They have background pages, and they have separate images. So lots of things to work with. And although we're making 6 cards, you're going to have lots of paper for other projects as well. Okay, so I think what we need to do is let's pick out all of our images for today's cards. And I'm just going to put my other ones away. So we need a few things. I'm going to grab them here so that we can go through the paper pack and then find them. So you can see on the front, there's also images that you can use. I didn't use this telescope today, but that's one for the future. And so I didn't use anything on the first page. I don't know if this is the second page or not, because my pages are probably all mixed up, but it's on this we used the last class. And so we're going to use this bird for today's class. So if you want to cut that out, you can either cut it out with your scissors or cut it out with your trimmer. I'm going to cut it out with my scissors, and then I'm going to actually trim it a little bit so that it's straight after with my trimmer. We are going to use this page. So this is one of the background images, and this is what you see on the other side. So this is, I think this is maybe one of the, no, I think we used a bigger plane. But what I did for our card designs today was I chose some of the words. So you can see here, skeletons, skull, heart, brain. One, I used, it comes to planets and telescope because it really matched this design. So you can find it here. You can choose other words if you don't want it, because this one's kind of right in the middle. So it comes to planets and telescopes. So I'm going to, yeah, I'm not worried about what's on the back of this to keep it. And let me just find the other one. I think it was skeleton, skull, heart, brain. It's right up here. So this little piece, this one, I don't know if there's another, it comes to telescopes, and I didn't use anything for the other one. So I'm just going to cut this out here. I'm going to cut it, and then I'm going to trim it to the size I want with my trimmer, but I'm just going to cut this little piece out. So I've got that ready to go. And then this one's in here now. I'm going to kind of cut so that if I wanted to use other words, I could. And you could choose, like if you think there's something else, but it gives you options so that if you don't have a stamp or something else you want to add or a different sentiment, then you have matching words, because you could even just use big brain or future, whatever you wanted. Okay, so I've got mine two ready to go. I'm going to put that aside. Then this is the sheet we used. This was the airplane. I believe the airplane was here. So here's the astronaut. Here's the telescope. And I did use this one, although this is a tag. I cut the top part off. So even though it has the tag design, you can use it for anything that sort of fits that size. And I believe I need the skull that's here as well. Okay, so I'm just gonna cut this out. Now on the back of this is just it's a design. So I'm just gonna admit somebody, there we go. So here we've got the skull. Yeah, that's the skull I used. And then I just need my telescope here. All right. So I believe, and then I have here my background sheet, which I used for the background of this design. And I chose, I sort of designed it so we could at least see the skeleton here. That's kind of how I worked around it. So we had that part of the design, and I can see, I think this is going to work. It's been a little while since I made these. So it's just under 4, and that's going to work. So this upper corner here, because here's the skeleton, and then we added little things on top of that. And you can see on the background, we matted it, but I left a little more space here. So you can cut a piece out. The background paper that I did is about 3 3/4. It's 3 3/4 wide, and it is 5 1/8 long. So 3 3/4 by 5 1/8. And I'm just going to get my cutting. So I'm going to do the 5 1/8 first because that's easier for me. And then I'm just going to do 3 3/4. So you can use you can cut it out and then trim it if you want, but there I've got mine ready to go. And again, we're going to have leftover pieces of this background. And then, okay, I think these are all my leftover pieces here. And then what I still have to find is just this heart. And that's, it's not this one, no. It might be on the back. Oh, here it is. It's on this sheet. So it has several rectangular elements, and it's the top corner of this sheet, and the background is this pattern. So again, I'm just going to cut this out. Okay, I think I have all my elements. So hopefully everybody's been able to find those. And again, you can see you've got a microscope, you've got another boat, you've got another telescope. So lots of items that you can use in similar designs with the rest of the pack, the sailing ship to use, because the theme really was sort of for men. As we know, Father's Day is coming up, and I hope everybody had a wonderful Mother's Day last weekend. All right, so let me just go through. So for this card, I've got my bird. For this card, I have my astronaut and my telescope. For this card, I have my background, my heart, and my skull. And I have my words for the two designs. Okay, I'm going to put all of my extra papers back in my package. And then while I'm doing this, if everyone has their items cut from their paper pack, then you can go ahead and trim them to the appropriate, or trim the excess. So I'm just going to bring my paper cutter in here and I'll do that. And then if you've done that, I know we had our open house last weekend, and some people were already prepared and had their things already cut out. So if you've done that already, then the next step we're going to do is we're going to mat each of the layers that we're cutting out. And in the designs, so for this one, we have just a very nice thin little mat around each of the images we're going to use, including the sentiment. And then in this one, we're only matting the sentiment and the microscope. And then in this one, we're not even matting the design, but you can just trim it. So if you want to go ahead and do that, that would be if you're ahead of us. All right. Now I chose to use, I mean, last class, we kind of did the craft cardstock. We used craft cardstock to mat our designs. And so the bird, we are using that, but otherwise I thought we could change it up a little bit, and we used a navy color cardstock. Again, I thought this pack lends itself to several colors of card, because you could also use a nice green as that would match that around the bird. Because it keeps it all sort of a theme. All right. And then we're going to try and add another little dimension to the astronaut. We're going to, if you have a die set that matches the tiny little circles, I have a couple here. They're part of the Nellie's Choice nested circle dies. They're slightly larger, but it actually will work. So I'll go through that once we get to that step, but that's what we're gonna, just a little variation to that design. Okay, I'm gonna try and do my sentiment here. A little tricky when you're using small designs. You can't really see what I'm doing here. You just need to start with a straight edge. Okay, I'm gonna just trim that a little bit. The little guillotine I'm using, you can see here is the Tim Holtz. It's really nice. I do like it. It has this protective piece that you can lift off if you need to use something that's thicker than will fit underneath here. It also has ridges both at the top and the bottom, which allows you to cut either putting a straight edge at the top or the bottom. I tend to use the bottom the most. However, I can use the top as well. So certain designs, I need to do that. So I do like this little guillotine. I've had it for quite a while. And the thing I like about the guillotines is you don't have to replace the blades. And it's always nice and sharp. Okay, so now I'm just going to trim this a little bit. I'm going to start here because I can kind of line up the words. You can see that just sort of keep going out of. Now I can lean it here. And the other thing I like about the guillotine is that you can actually do quite small designs, like very small strips you can get off. Okay, I think that's going to be all right for my sentiment. Okay. All right. Oh, I still have my bird and my. Okay, this is a flat edge. Once I have a flat edge, then I know it's. All right. Oh, my tag. Okay, so this one I just used. I used the bottom. So just cut the bottom, and then I'm sure I just cut it off. So we can still see the full telescope, but we didn't have the tag portion. There's nothing stopping you from keeping the tag portion on that. If you prefer, you could even add a little ribbon or something if you wanted to do that. Oh, the one thing we didn't pick out, this little number. I'll have to get my paper out again. I just thought that because you get them in the package, I just added that directly on top. So I'll go and get that a little bit later. All right, so we have all of our pieces together. And now I think it's probably easiest if we just cut the mats and get the the pieces matted, and then we're going to emboss everything with our stencil, like to create texture. And so I think that's probably the easiest. Then we can just put them all together. So again, the bird, we didn't have to mat the bird, so we're good. However, I'll come back and we'll cut the strips for that one. And then this particular design, we're going to mat all the pieces. And then this one, we're just going to mat the telescope, but we also need to cut a piece of blue cardstock, which is 4 inches by 5 3/8. Oh, let me just double check that. I don't have my, 5 1/4, sorry. I was going on here. So we're going from here to here, so 5 1/4. So 4 inches by 5 1/4 inches. I'm going to start with that piece. I have some pieces. I always like to use my leftover pieces. 5 1/4 by 4. Let's see what we have here. 4 first. All right. And then the background, we're going to mat as well. I think I just used a pencil trick here, but so that's about 3 7/8 by 5, because you never know if you cut the background exactly the same, but 5 and about 5 1/8. Yeah, maybe 5 1/8 and a little bit. I'm going to just take my sheet. And this is going to work. And I'm just going to take my pencil here and I'm just going to look at the size I want. I'm going to make a little mark where I want to cut it. And that's easier than measuring every time. And if you didn't get the mat the way you want it, you can always trim your background piece a little bit as well. So it doesn't really matter. Okay, so I've got that one done. This one is for my background. All right. Now I'm going to see if I have a little piece. Nope, it's not going to work. Okay, do the pencil thing here. With the guillotine, it's not quite as easy to just cut around something. So I do still have a paper trimmer, but this, because I wanted to leave a bigger piece, I just didn't cut it directly across. Okay, and then this is probably going to work for this. Almost. I'm going to trim this so that I can use that piece. Just a shade here. Now there's a little piece here, but you'll never see that. It's a little bit of a cut, but you'll never see it once I get this on. It's such a tiny little bit, you'll never see it. All right. Oh, and I still have my little skull here. So in the last class, I mentioned that I thought that this package actually lent itself towards graduation designs because it kind of has a lot of the different sciences themes. So like astronomy, anatomy, biology, botany, chemistry, because some of the images have the elements tables. So especially as graduations are coming up, for those who are finished their programs. So hopefully these themes might work for some of you who are having friends or relatives who are graduating this year. All right, so I think I have those done, this done, that done. I just don't have my little piece for my sentiment. So the next class that we're going to do is we're going to get to use up some of our scraps. I don't know about you, but I just hate throwing paper away. I always think, oh, there's something I can use. So there's going to be some floral elements, and we're going to be able to use up some of your scrap papers to create some flowers. So that'll be fun. And you'll get to use up some of your scraps. I always feel good when I get to use up my scraps. Right. Somebody says, me too about the scraps. I'm not glad I'm not the only crazy one. I think I have boxes of scraps, especially white paper. So I always try and use up the white paper scraps. All right. And I think I still have my skeleton. I always have such a mess here. I'll find it. Okay, I'm trying to get all their mats finished. Those of you who have their mats all ready to go, you can attach the images to the mats, and then I seem to have missed my place, my skeleton sentiment. I'm sure I'll find it. Okay. All right, so let's add our images to our mats, and I'm going to use double-sided tape. You can use glue. The Ciao Bella paper is thick enough to use some glue. Don't use too much. I would just use a little bit, but it does hold the glue well, so meaning it doesn't really buckle or wrinkle. All right. And then those of you who have joined us, so our next class is actually going to be in the evening. So I'm hoping that that's going to work out for everyone. I know the reason for that is that I have a day job too. So I will be working during the day on the 26th of May. But I thought we could do a 6:30 to 8:30 evening class. I know when I talked to some people at our open house, they weren't able to join us for our class because they worked during the day. So, I mean, we do have the videos. We're going to be better about that to watch afterwards. But so we were thinking 6:30 to 8:30 as an evening class. And we'll try and alternate between the sort of daytime class and evening class. but hopefully that'll work out for everybody. So I'm just using the 3mm Be Creative double-sided tape. That's plenty, lots of tape for a small design. Sometimes, well, we're gonna use some foam tabs to raise it, but we're just going to use the double-sided tape flat for all of the items. Then we can emboss a few, and we'll emboss through both layers. Sometimes I don't go all the way around. If it's a smaller piece, just 2 sides is usually good enough. Especially if, you know, nobody's going to be touching these designs, like the inner part, like no one's going to be moving that, and it's well adhered. Where's this? Oh, this is this one. Okay. I usually just use a few, especially if I'm adding sentiments to the inside of my cards. I just do two sides. Those are my stamp sentiments. Otherwise, if I have a die cut sentiment, then I usually use the sticky specs because that's the easiest to adhere those. So I think we've got, okay, I've got that ready. Yeah, I've kind of missed my, just, I think it must be in this pile here somewhere. And then if you, we also are going to need a 5x7, a white 5x7 card, and 2 4 1/4 by 5.5, or the A2 size cards. So if you haven't cut those, you can go ahead and cut those as well as we're working on matting our items. And then we need a background piece. Did I cut that? I think I cut that. Yeah, this is my background piece. Okay. All right. And we are going to need to cut some of the strips of the craft card stock. So I usually use my leftovers, really. So there's nothing fancy about these measurements, but this one's 7/8. This one's 7/8 inch, and this one is 1 inch. I think this one also was so it would accommodate the one design on the stencil. So I used 2 different designs. You could use the same design, it doesn't matter. This one I use the zigzag design, and this one I use the straight vertical, horizontal lines. And this one, it really doesn't matter. I just did something to put behind that corner. So you can go ahead and cut your strips. I actually have 1 inch. Well, it's a little bit bigger than that, so I'll trim that down. And so that one will be 5 by 1 inch. That strip. And then I'm just going to need 7/8 inch. But again, if you had a little bit bigger, it doesn't matter really. That's how I usually like things that just, oh, I didn't measure that one very well. Wasn't paying attention. That's how I like to use up some of my strips of cardstock. And then I just use whatever size strip I have available. All right. Oh, this I'm just going to trim. This will be 7 inches. I just have my short or my small guillotine. I actually also have a large one when I cut my cardstock. Okay, I'm going to clean my area up here a little bit. All right, so the square here, it's 1 1/4 square. I'm just going to measure that. Doesn't look like it. Sorry, 1 3/4 square. That doesn't look like 1 1/4. 1 3/4. Okay. All right. Okay. All right. So how is everybody doing? I think hopefully we've got most of the components together. So why don't we start putting together well, I think we're going to emboss. Let's emboss all our designs because I see that I did emboss this. So although it's hard to see, when you do see the cards in real life, you do see the texture that the embossing provides to the design. I also did ink a little bit around the edges. So you can choose, I use a sepia ink, the VersaFine sepia ink with my little inking tool here. But you could maybe choose a gray or something if you wanted, because we do have the blue and there's sort of bluish gray in the background. So we're going to emboss this piece. So I'm just going to put all the pieces we're going to emboss aside, this one. We're also going to emboss. So we're not going to do anything with this one. We're just going to emboss the telescope. So I'm going to put that one aside. And then I did emboss the bird. It's hard to see, but you can kind of see it there, how it's just a little bit raised. It gives it like a quilted pattern. And then we're going to emboss all of these little accent pieces and strips. So to emboss using a stencil, we went through this in our last class, but I'm going to go through it again for those of you who didn't join us for that class. You're going to use your rubber mat that comes with your die cutting machine. So I have my rubber mat here, and I'm using my large machine. I have a small machine and a large machine, and I'm going to grab my designs. I can do a couple here. I'm going to put my design on top of my rubber mat, and I'm going to put another one beside it, because it really doesn't matter to me for when I'm doing these, what pattern I use. When I do the strips, I want a specific pattern for my design, but for this, it doesn't matter. I'm now going to put my stencil on top, and then I'm going to complete my sandwich And for my machine, I can adjust the roller, so I just have the one plate. For other machines, you may need one or two plates. Whatever your sandwich, whatever your machine instructions come with for that particular sandwich that you need when you use your rubber mat. So I'm going to run this through my machine now. And now you can see that I do have some texture. When you can see the texture there a little bit. When you ink around the edge, you'll pick up that texture. And so that's why it's kind of nice to add a little bit of inking. You can see it there. It does give it sort of a quilted type design and just adds to the project. Oh, I didn't clean this off. Oh, that's all right. And then I didn't actually add texture to the skull. And then I did want to add to the bird. Now, it feels like I just did half of it. I'm going to do the whole bird this time. So I'm going to put my bird on here. And I'm going to do exactly the same thing. So again, put my stencil on top and run it through my die cutting machine. So now we have some texture. You can kind of see that a little bit better on the bird. Again, a quilted type of look. And now, let me see. So I did these. I did that. Yep, I did everything. So then what we have left to do are, again, you can choose whichever design you want. I kind of chose two different ones. So I chose this one here so I'm just going to put my strip and just cover it with that particular design so that it fits nicely. And then the longer strip, I use this design. And so I'm just going to grab that piece. And I can do both of these together again. The nice thing about this stencil is it does have separation, so you can just, and then you can just lay it on. I don't think it's going to move enough. It's a silicone mat, or rubber mat. All right. Oh, I didn't add my little square. Well, we'll do that again. So now you can see the texture from the stencil in your strips. So another way to use your stencils, we've got so many different stencil designs that you've got lots of options, right? So this stencil is a nice background stencil. So you've got several options to use. Sometimes if there's a pattern in it, you can still pick out a strip, especially if you're just embossing a strip of paper. That works really well. If you want to emboss more of a design like the whole bird or something, then a background stencil works the best. But because some stencils come with a whole bunch of designs on them, but if you chose a strip or something, you could easily do that for those as well. All right, so the one thing I didn't do is this. And again, it's just the corner here, really doesn't matter. Most of it's covered, but you do want to have some design because you can see how you can actually see it on the outside edge. So you want some sort of design on that piece of paper. got that. All right. I think we are ready to ink and start putting some things together. So what I'd like to do now is I'm going to strips of craft card. So I'm going to use a small ink blending tool with a foam pad on top. This is my sepia ink, and I'm just going to, it's all just rub across. Now this, I just know the edges are going to be inked. And I don't want to get too much. You can always add more. It's more difficult to take ink away. I just want to sort of antique it. Now, because I know this is going to be covered, I didn't do that. And so this one, I'm going to go over most of it, just, and sometimes you might want to dab off if you've got a really juicy ink pad. Mine's been well used, so that makes a big difference too. If you have a brand new pad, then you'll grab a whole lot more ink on your ink blending tool. So you want to just be a little more careful. But again, this is just sort of to distress it and to pick up the embossing. It will add depth to your design. And I think as I work in the crafts and things, I do like texture on my design. So I like that embossed look. Even if it's subtle, it does add to your designs. Even like a background or something. All right. That's pretty good. It doesn't shows up. It looks better off camera than it does on camera. It doesn't look as splotchy off camera. All right. Oh, I'm going to do a little bit. This one I'm not going to do. I'm not going to do the bird. I am going to do the heart just a shade, just around the edge to pick up a little bit of that texture. But you can choose to do what you want. Maybe you want to use a grayish ink that would sort of match as well. Right. I didn't do anything with the bird, a little bit with the telescope, again, just to pick up that texture design. I didn't do the sentiment. All right. I think I'm kind of ready to start putting a few things together. So why don't we do let's do this card first. So I'm going to just gather my pieces that I need. So my heart, my skull, and I still haven't found my skeleton. So you need the sentiment as well. Yeah, I don't know what happened to that. Okay, so you have your A2 card. So 4 1/4 by 5 1/2, or just a half of an 8 1/2 by 11 card. And so the way I designed this card was I put the background and matted it so it's sort of in the left bottom corner. And then, so there's a little bit more space around here. And that's where we're going to add I'm going to offset this a little bit, and that's where we're going to put the heart. And then what I did do, if you look closely, I did add a gold sticker line. So in the class that we did with the pixie powders and the panel card, you did get a sheet of line stickers. So I thought, well, I'll just add those as accents. So I put that just across and then down. So you see a little bit on each side there. And again, if you have a sticker line, you can do that. If you don't, not to worry. But again, it's just to try and pull things together, add a little bit of interest in different parts of the card. Because I also added a few just little gold pearls in those corners to pick up the gold as well. Those little things do make a difference. So I'm just going to add this to my card. Again, I'm choosing to use double-sided tape, but if you prefer glue, a glue stick, whatever adhesive is your favorite, doesn't really matter. And so the base we're going to add with double-sided tape, and then the elements we're going to add with foam tape. So again, to create some dimension for the card. All right, so we kind of want it in the bottom left corner with a white sort of spaced evenly. And then this one, I'm just going to add some foam tape. I have tape here today to the back. Doesn't really matter what size. This is pretty thick. I'm just going to add a small piece in the center too, just so it doesn't collapse on me. Now, actually, before I do that, I'm going to just add my sticker line. This happens to be a Christmas sticker with some bells, corners, and some holly and poinsettia. It's quite nice with the corners. I just saw that it was in my sort of stash and I just wanted a sticker line. So I'm just going to add that here. I'm just going to trim it. I just cross the edges because you really don't see much on that side. But I can show you how you can miter the corners with your stickers. So I'm just putting the sticker line sort of evenly across the space, and I'm just going to cut it off here. If I wanted to miter my corner, do I have a knife here? I do have a craft knife. So what I would do, because I'm just going to show you that tip, this is just a scrap piece of paper. I'm just going to put underneath the top because I'm going to use a craft knife. And what I would do is just on the angle where the cross is, I would cut it. I'm just going to do it and show you here today. So I'm just going to cut down, just press down. You don't like necessarily cut, just press. So it cuts through both stickers. And then I can take off the little pieces that are left over and you have a perfect mitered corner. If you can see that. But that's one way to get a lovely corner, and so they don't overlap. All right. because otherwise it's always hard to get them exactly even. So overlap them and then, whoops, I got this stuck. And then just cut an angle on an angle like a miter. Okay, so now I'm going to add this so that it just sort of has the same size border. Okay, and then we're going to add the skull. Now, I have the skull overlapping the heart. And again, you can see the whole idea was to have the skeleton sort of visible because we have skeleton and skull here, heart, brain, muscles. Oh, maybe I didn't choose the right sentiment anyway. It's heart, brain, muscles. So for this, to add the skull, all I want to do is add foam tape to the bottom. So it will be even with this. And the top, you can either choose to use double-sided tape or you can just leave. So I'm just going to add this to the bottom, just a strip like this. And then I'm going to add some double-sided tape just to adhere it to the heart. But that way you can keep everything just, I guess, one dimension above, but it's overlaps, right? Okay. There. And then because I lost my skeleton sentiment, it might be in my garbage by accident. I'm not going to add that, but you can add that. I'll find it, I'm sure, when we're finished. So I just added that, the same thing, just add a little bit of foam tape or foam tabs on this side, and then a little bit of tape on the other side, and then just overlap the sentiment. Then all you have to do to finish this card is add some jewels if you like. I use gold because it matched the gold sticker line. But if you had some jewels or something, you could use some jewels. Whatever you happen to have in your stash, that would work. Not a problem. So that's the first card completed. And then let's do the astronaut card next. So I'm going to put this aside. And I'm going to grab my astronaut card. So again, you need a 4 1/4 by 5.5 inch card. Okay, I have my cards cut here, but I didn't actually score them. So I'm going to score this. And I'm going to score my. So this is 1/2 and 8.5 by 11. I'm just going to score down here. And again, fold away from the score line. You get a nice even edge. And I'm going to do my 5 by 7 card as well. So this is 7 inches by 10, and I'm going to score at 5 inches along the long edge. And again, fold it down. I do have a Teflon bone folder that I often use just to crease my cards, or you can use the end of your scoring tool. I tend to use a stylus, but most scoring boards come with a scoring tool. All right. So I have both my cards ready. Now for this one, we are going to put the blue mat on it, but what we're going to do first, so this, again, this time we're going to the upper right corner. We're going to offset it a little bit. So we have a little bit more space on the other side. And just, so we're going to do 2 things with the astronaut. So what I want to do is I'm going to cut out these little planets. So I'm going to use my die cutting machine to do that. And I showed you, I did have a couple little dies that worked. If you don't have dies that work, you may want, so the other thing you can see with the planets, I did dip them into Versamark and make them shiny. So in our last class, we used Versamark as well as clear embossing folder to highlight some areas of our paper, because when you have paper, it's always nice to add something to it just to draw someone's attention. So this one, I actually put a little foam tab behind to give it a little bit of rounding. You can see the die wasn't exactly right, but you don't really see it, because if you can put it exactly where it was before, your eye just goes to the shiny part. So if you don't have little dies, but you do have Versamark, or you have, really you need a Versamark pen for this, then you can go over the area with your Versamark pen. If you're not familiar with these they have the same sticky ink in them. They have two ends. We have a sort of brush tip end, and then you have a fine tip end. And all you have to do is go over the area of your paper. I mean, I can do this first, and then we can die cut it out. That's fine. So I can just show you. So I'm going to go over this planet. You can go over all the planets. I just chose to go over a couple planets. So I'm just going to go over that. And then I'm going to take my clear embossing powder, and I'm going to sprinkle it over those two. And I'm going to cut it out because I have the dies, but at least those of you who might not have dies that work, you can try this just to accent a few of the planets. So you are going to hear me with my heat tool here in a second. Okay. I tend to heat from the bottom, so I'm going to show you so you can see. So you can see that they do now have a little bit of shine to them. That's why the pen is so nice, because you can just do the area that you want highlighted. And people said, well, how did that happen? How did you do that? Well, with the Versamark tool. So we do have the Versamark pens are available on the website, and they're not expensive. I think they're $3.95 or something. So a great tool to have in your stash, and you can add it to anything. You can even add like just a die cut or something, or maybe you want a little part of a die cut highlighted and shiny. So you can just add that. All right. So I have my planets ready to go. I'm going to die cut them. And then the other thing we're going to do, because we're using our embossing mat, is we're going to make an impression with our die. So this die, I think it lends itself to Christmas, because to me it looks like a little wreath, but it also matches with the anchor, which is the set it came with. And then I thought, well, it also is circular, so it could work with this card. And I wanted to use it as well because it came with the kit. So what I did was I just made an impression in both corners of the design. And then I just added a few little gems to represent like stars. I also added a few little gems around the astronaut to highlight the stars and in these two corners. Okay, so how are we going to do this? We're going to take our embossing mat, and I want it just in the both this corner, the top corner and the bottom corner. So I'm just going to put this on top of my mat, and then I'm going to run it through, put my plate on top, and I'm going to run it through my die cutting machine the same way as we did for the stencil. It shouldn't cut through. it should just make an impression. I can adjust mine, so I'm going to make mine a little bit less thick, but you'll hear it crack a little bit, or crack, the paper cracking, I guess. But you should get an impression. So, and you can see there's my impression here. Now it looks like I did go through a little bit, but it won't really show through because we're going to add little, I'm going to lessen my pressure here. And we're going to do another one on the other side. Different dies are different sizes, so sometimes you just have to adjust a little bit. But it is a way that you can use your dies to create impressions in your cardstock, which is another way to use your dies. Because sometimes you don't want to cut, you want an impression. Okay, so there we have our impressions. And now I'm going to put that aside. And now we're ready. Oh, before I put that away, I'm going to die cut my planets. Sometimes I'm going to give you a little tip here. So if I'm trying to see if it's going to work, I sort of turn it upside down, because the knife of the die, or the edge of the die, it's not really a knife, it's just, it doesn't always go to the edge of your die, right? There's usually a little lip. So I usually look at it that way to give me a better impression of how it's going to work. So it does show that it should be pretty good. And then where did my other little die go? Oh, here we go. Now, because I've got two dies that I want to stay in place, I do have a little bit of tape I'm going to use to keep them in place. So this is painter's tape, low tack tape. If you have washi tape, whatever you might have, to just hold it in place while you die cut it. Often I will eyeball when I die cut, but not when I have to be quite specific, as in these planets. I like to just tape it down. Sometimes there are magnetic plates available that keep the dies in place, so that's another option you could use. And I'm just going to peel it back. I usually keep a few little pieces of tape on my die cutting machine. Okay, so you can see my planets were just a little bit smaller than my dies, but I think when I add it back, it should be fine. All right, so I'm going to put these, keep them safe. So now what we need to do is add this blue embossed background to our cardstock, and then we can add the astronaut in the upper right corner, and then we're going to add the other pieces. So I'm going to use double-sided tape. Right. So this I'm aiming, again, I'm doing it upper right, but whatever you like for your design. And then I'm going to add my astronaut on top. And then when I add my planets back, I'm going to curve them slightly, and I'm just going to add a foam tab behind them just to make them raised a little bit. I don't actually have my foam mat to do the, I might just do it in the palm of my hand here a little bit, just with a stylus. And then I'm going to try and add it right back that matches the paper. I can see, it's probably hard for you to see, but I can see the little bits of brown here that would fit. And then you don't really notice that the circle was a little bit larger than the planet itself. I'm just going to use a fairly thin foam tab. I think this is a 1 millimeter size. And this is black, so they do come in black. We have black and white. I think we have more sizes in the black right now. So I don't think it really matters. If you have thick enough cardstock, the black probably won't show through white. And the black you don't see is easy from the side. All right, I'm just going to line it up. There we go. And this one, I think I'm just going to put the foam tab in the hole and then add the planet. And if I use them out, yeah, there we go. I can get it like pretty much exact. You can just, there. Just a way to add a little bit of something to your design. And so the next thing for this particular card is the telescope. And again, it just fits underneath this planet. So I wanted to make sure that I could make that raised. And I'm just going to aim to put this in the bottom left corner. So it has a similar mat as around this corner. And then there'll be a little bit larger areas there. I'm going to use my foam tape for this. If I can find it. I think I misplaced my foam tape. Oh, here it is. Okay, found it. All right. And then you can also add the planets. It comes to planets telescope. I'm just going to put that just offset so I can add a few little gems into the area of those embossed circles. And then the one thing we didn't get yet for this design, I added this little, I don't know, number 147. So we can find that in the paper pack. All right. So now I would just finish it off with some gems. I'll do one, and then yeah, I think we'll probably, yeah, I'll leave you to do the others. But again, to add my gems, I usually just use some glue, and so I'm just going to add a few little drops of glue. Just need to get it started here. I might as well. Okay. I'm going to put 2 here, but then, so in each corner. And then you can add some around the astronaut as well, if you like. We'll probably leave you to finish those things off just in the interest of time. So again, I'm using the Creative Expressions Dries Clear glue. It's in a different, it's in my thin line bottle that comes with the tip. But this tip, you can also just get the tips and they fit on the Creative Expressions bottles themselves. So, but I do like the Creative Expressions glue, and it dries clear. So even if you go, once you put your gem on, if it sort of spreads the glue out, then it doesn't matter, it's going to dry clear. And I tend to always add my gems with glue because that way I know they're not going to come off. Sometimes even if they are stick-on gems, they will, oh, I think I always do that. They may still come off, but I find that if I use this dries clear glue, they're staying in place. They're not coming off. Or I mean, you could, with a knife, you could cut them off, but through the mail and being handled in the retail store or at events, they don't come off. All right. So I've done that. Again, we can try and find this little piece that you can add to it, or you can leave it open for a sentiment or something else, whatever you're using this card for. But that one's basically done. We just have to add that little piece. I did a few here, sort of just to represent the Milky Way, I guess. All right, so that's done. And so now the last card we're going to do is this bird, and it's fairly straightforward. We already embossed our bird, and then you'll notice in here I added those gold accent lines as well. So I added it across the 2 edges of the bird, and then I also added some accent lines just along this strip, just in this area, and then across the bottom here. It's subtle, but it does add something to the design. And then I just have a few little gold gems in the corners here. So this one, what we're going to do is let's add these 2 strips. I crossed the top one over the bottom one, doesn't matter. You can do whatever you prefer. And I'm just going to add these. So we already prepared these. I'm going to add them with double-sided tape. So I kind of have, it looks like, I'll measure it, but it looks like about a 1/4 inch. Yeah, it's about a 1/4 inch of a white space on each of those sides, just to give you an idea. Just to give you an idea of the dimensions. So somebody was asking, I'm just going to check out the questions. Somebody was asking about the shaping tool. Yes, there is a set of shaping tools very similar. This one's well used. There used to be little handle grips here, but they sort of broke off. And they come as a set. I've got a couple sets here, and I think it's a very similar set. I think there's another one. I don't see it in my, I'm pretty sure there's 3. They all are double-sided. You see, here's the little handles that this one used to have. Doesn't stop it from working. You can see they have different size stylus. This is a very fine one, which is good to curl paper if you're going to make like roses or something. This is a one I tend to use when I use my scoring board. So, but Dennis, I believe there are some coming in. They are adding it to an order right now. So they should be in, and I will let everybody know once they're in at our next class. If they're in for the next class, they're from Hunky Dory, I believe. So, but they're great. They're kind of an essential tool because it's always nice to have something to do shaping, and particularly shaping for flowers. Again, I'm just going to do 2 little strips of double-sided tape. It'll be plenty for these designs. And the corner one, we're going to leave that one because we're going to add that to our bird. And then we're going to put some foam tape behind it. So it's hard to see in the example, but this is actually raised. So hold off on that one and just add your embossed craft strips right now. Oops. Oh, I was going to put this on top. Doesn't matter. Okay. I'm going to add I'm just going to add the gold strip. Let's see, we've got 2 here because I think I mentioned in one of my the class we use this, that although this is a gold strip, you can make it any color you like by just going over it with alcohol-based markers. So those are nice. So they will color it and it will still have a metallic sheen to it. If you're making a flower card or something, you want it to be pink, you can do that. You can just make a pink sticker line. So that's handy. So if you have the basic gold or silver color, you can make it any color. they will still, the shine of the sticker will still come through. All right. Now, what I'm going to do is I'm going to add, now I'm out of the straight lines, but I have little curvy lines here. So I'm going to add those to my bird. And again, if you had like a brown or a sepia ink, you could make these gold sticker lines copper looking, like it just add a brown. So explore that. And if you have corners, the same thing, whatever stickers you happen to have, you can make them any color with alcohol ink. So your Copic markers, or we also have Couture Creation markers that are alcohol based. So anything you might have, or not, yeah, alcohol based. They just need to be alcohol based. Okay. So what I'm going to do is add my corner to my bird. So I'm going to add some tape to the bird itself here, because that's the easiest for me to do. And I'm just going to do it in the corner. It doesn't have to match because we're going to raise it. Okay. And then what I'm going to do, I have the tape. I'm just going to eyeball it and then press it down. Okay. Because now what we're going to do is we're going to add foam tape behind the bird itself, and then that will raise everything. Again, once you see it on your design, it's hard to capture all of those things on the pictures when we advertise the class. I'm going to try and do maybe some little video advertisements so that you can see in real time what the cards look like as well. All right, so I have my foam tape, and then I'm just going to add this to the design. So it's going to overlap the side and the bottom, and then we've got the corner. I'm just going to sort of peel back the sides halfway, just so I can get it straight. The inner pieces I have to peel off, but these ones I can peel off when I've stuck down part of it, just so I can get the top. So I want to have a 1/4 inch around the square here, just to match all the dimensions. And then I can just peel off these. And we have our design. And now I have a few little gold jewels I'm going to add to each of my corners. And then that should finish off the design. Oh, and I just get my finger glue. We have a lot of jewels or gems or rhinestones or whatever, pearls on the website. We're trying to, if you go under brand, you're going to see them all, but we're going to try and add some keywords. So if you search pearls, you'll get all the pearls. If you search gemstones, rhinestones, whatever, you'll get all of the different ones. We have some from all sorts of different manufacturers. So there's some that come with multiple colors on them, some that are multiple sizes on the same package. We've got little rolls of pearls that just came in with a variety of colors of pearls, all the same size. So lots of options on the website. And we have some that have a little more sparkle to them. So lots of different gems. So I just added some gold. So there you can really see the dimension in the card. And so that's our bird card completed. That was the prototype. And then we have, so again, this was our astronaut. So I'm just going to go find that little piece so you know which one. Oh, here it is. It's on, this is the background sheet. And then this is the piece right here. So I can just cut it out. I'm just going to cut it with my scissors and add it. I think I just added it with blue, but I thought it was perfect fit. It was blue. It worked really well. Okay. And you can see you do have little labels that are blank. And so you could stamp something in those and then add it to your design. And it looks like it was all part of the design. I'm just using a little bit of glue to add this on my design. Well, that was pretty easy to find because I have to go through the whole paper pack, but it was right there. So again, this is the background paper and it was just here with part of the little labels. And you can see the different labels there. So I finished off that card. I just never did find my skull sentiment, but I'll find that. So again, we added a little bit of shine to the planets. If you had a die that would cut it out, we cut it out and then added it back with a little foam tap and then added some little jewels. I just didn't add jewels around the astronaut yet, but you can do that at home. And then our last one was the anatomy, skeleton, skull, design, heart, brain, muscles. And I just lost my little sentiment, but I will find it. And then we add a little bit of gold sticker lines, if you have those, and a couple little gold accents. So those are the cards for today. And then these were the cards also that we made the last time with the same paper pack. So lots of options with the Ciao Bella paper packs, and there's lots of different sizes. So whatever size you like to use. If you get the 12 by 12 paper pack, they have larger images. So they're just like sized up a little bit. So again, otherwise similar themes. So I hope you enjoyed that. Now I want to show you the cards that I made for our next class. So this, when I saw this die, I thought, oh, there's lots of things I can do with it. So I'm going to show you the sample cards and then I'll show you the die set. So you get a tag with the die. And what I really like is you get this flower pattern. So it cuts the flowers out and then it also cuts part of the petals out so you can make them raised. You also get separate flower dies that allow you to do lots of things. So I added a couple back to this design to create some color. And this background was the pixie powder background that I made for the panel card that we did with the dogwood. So I used the leftover piece to create this tag. So you can get the tag. And then this is another card I made. So the die, I'm going to show you the die here. So it's a big die set. So I use this die and I cut it out completely. It's a 5.5 inch wide die. This is a 4 1/4 by 5.5. So I was able to cut it out of blue. And you can see that you also get the nice little ruffle or scalloped edge, and it's stitched all around the die. So I also cut the white card to have the scalloped edge on the front and the back, and then you just lay it on top. That was pretty simple. I cut some extra flowers out, added with sympathy, and you've got a really pretty little card. So this is an A2 size. And then I thought, okay, we need to play with these flowers and how we can use the extra flowers you get. And this is where the using up your scraps come in. And so I made this design. So this is a 5.5 inch square card. I cut several layers of scallops here to add to the top. I added some flowers, and you get the small flowers and the big flowers. You get the open petal flowers. So I cut a whole bunch of different colors from my scrap to make the card design, or to make it colorful. So I cut it out of white and then made it colorful. And then I also added another little bottom scalloped edge to the back so that you can see through it here. So anyway, we should be able to make all of these cards in the next class with this die set. So this is a die set. It's from Studio Light. And you get the big die with, I'm going to just take it off, with the border. And I think you could use this for a gatefold card. You can use it for a variety of cards. I'll play with it a little bit more before our next class, so I can show you some other cards that you can make with it. And then this creates a stitched edge. You can see it there. The stitching goes all around the flowers, and otherwise you cut out all of these open flowers. It all cuts at the same time, and you can see the stitched edge there. Okay. Then you also get 2 layers. So these have these scalloped bottoms to fit over the flowers. Now, I didn't use these layers, but you can create a whole layered card with different colors. So that's really fun. I'm going to play with those. And then you get the tag with the same flowers at the base. And you actually get 2 layers. I must have misplaced one. It's probably under some paper somewhere on my desk. But you get 2 layers, so you can layer up the tag as well. You can even cut this off, and then you just have a tag. You get the little circles to fortify or strengthen the little hole that gets cut automatically in the tag when you cut it. And so that's what I used. I just used this 1 layer to create this colorful on the bottom. And then you get all these flowers. So these come together, they create sort of the solid petal flower I used here. And then you get all the different sizes of flowers, including these flowers, which have these petals that can stand up or down, because I added some flowers here, but you can see how they can make dimension here. So you get all the flowers. So you can use the flowers on anything, but they match all of the sizes that you get with this design. And then I just use this edge to create several layers of scallops, so it will all coordinate together. So anyway, those are the designs for the next class. We should be able to make them all, or if you're, you'll always have the video to go refer back to finish off. And of course, these are the colors of scraps I had, but you can choose any color scheme that you might have at home. So I think we've added the class link in the.
Yes, our class link is in the description, but hopefully, can you hear me?
Yes, I can. Okay. So Emily's at the warehouse.
So the card class is up. The banner we need to change though, because we got confused. We thought they were doing just either the square card or the A2 card.
Okay.
So if you're making all 3, we just got to change that. But everything else is right. The date and the time.
Okay, because it just says Lisa Horton in the link, but it's not a Lisa Horton. It's a Studio Light die. So
yeah, it's just the link name, but I'll send it again in the chat.
Okay. All right. So it is a correct link. So you get all of these dies. It is because you get so much with your die. The retail price is $45 for the die set, but I think certainly you will be able to use this multiple times. And you can create beautiful cards quite quickly, because this was really 2 layers. And then I added a few little flowers. So lots of applicability to different occasions that you might have. So I chose the with sympathy here. So, and then Dennis said that he would cover the shipping fee. So if you're interested, you don't have to pay shipping for this particular item. If you order more items in your cart, then I think there will be a shipping fee for that. So hopefully everybody had fun at today's class. I'm just going to switch my cameras, and you'll be able to join us for the next class. I'm going to try and do some more advertising for the class, so you might see that on Facebook Live or something. And I'm going to try and make up a few different samples so you can see how you might use it in different size of cards, like slimline card, maybe smaller cards, or I don't know what I'm going to come up with, but hopefully you'll join us. And again, you're going to get more information. We're going to try and use a different streaming program. So it might not be a Zoom link. We're hoping it's going to be a different link, or we're going to go through Facebook Live, but we want to make a virtual class group. But you'll hear more about that. We might just go to our Facebook page, but we're also hoping to do YouTube. So if you don't have a Facebook account, you can go to a YouTube Live. So stay tuned for that information, and we'll be sending that out shortly. And then the other thing to remember, if you want to join us for the next class, is it's going to be in the evening. I'm aiming for 6:30 to 8:30. And again, as if we stream to Facebook, it will be on Facebook Live immediately after the class. So you'll be able to review it right away. And the same thing with YouTube. We'll be able to send out that link, or you'll have the link right away. So thank you for joining us, everybody. I hope you enjoyed that class, and hopefully you'll join us for the next one. So have a great few weeks, and hope to see you again on May 26th. Bye for now. Bye, everybody.